I thought maybe, I mean, from a personal standpoint, I'm very interested to know the sourcing of the ingredients you use for your different products, whether it be Ossa or Fierce Nature. Could you give us a little bit of a insight into like what that process looks like on finding farms? How does that begin, and how does it end up in your product? What other things you have to do?
It's been fun and interesting. Provenance is huge for me because obviously a thing is the sum of all of its parts, So it started off where we had the demand was so little when broth was first launched. 2015, we went onto the shelves in Planet Organic, and at that point we could just go to one farm. I looked around, I met the cows. In fact, when I was a teenager, I used to own cows as an investment. I'd buy like a heifer. I used to own 2 or 3 cows at a time. And then I had a boyfriend at the time that's father was a farmer, and he loved taking good care of cows. And then you sell them off as prize cows for milking or for meat or whatever it might be. And you can make a really amazing profit on it. That was in South Africa back in the day. So you can understand a healthy and a happy cow and what you need from them. And there are different breeds, and a milking cow is different to a cattle cow, a beef cow, etc. And that was simple. But then obviously it became much more difficult because we needed more, like tons and tons and tons of bones. So we work now under Soil Association standards. So they have farms that meet their criteria, because it's impossible for one person to go around and make sure everything's how you want it to be, that they're not getting routine antibiotics, that the feed is correct, and that they meet organic standards, and that they're out in pasture, which in England is great because there's so many green hills. Water was another big one for me, because so many people will go and make their own, not many people, but the ones that will go make their own broth will then fill up tap water, and you think, the minute that you're boiling tap water, you're concentrating everything in there that you don't want. You're evaporating off the steam, and you're getting extra fluoride and extra chloride and chlorine and all these things. So we actually have a borehole, an underground water source for spring water on the farm where we make the broth. That was really important for me.
Wow.
And then salt, obviously we had to go, you would have, I don't know if you would have seen recently, but there's a bit of scandal around pink Himalayan salt and where you actually source it from. And so we always have to make sure that everything is procured correctly.
Lots of trace metals in, right? That's some of the stuff
certain metals, certain heavy metals amongst the salts and stuff. But I always say to people get so overwhelmed. You'd read that and you just kind of panic and run a mile. Don't worry about, it's not like you're injecting yourself with mercury or anything. Just have awareness, and if you're eating a good pink salt or a good sea salt, you're doing really, really well. As opposed to iodized or table salt. If you even understand that, you're doing really, really well. So salt was a big one for us. And then also we made it a thing to source wonky vegetables. So we weren't buying really nice organic vegetables that we were going to throw in the boiler. And back in the day, I was so keen. I would go to the farm every month and I would pick up once the bones have been boiled, a lot of meat comes off of them. And it's the best part. I would always go and pick up the half-boiled bones and then pull off all the meat and make like stews. But eventually the farmer was like, this woman is mad.
Who's that picking around in the broth again?
And then I'd go home with a car full of steaming bones, and my husband was like, what the? So eventually we got to a point where I was like, okay, I can let it go. But there's a biomass boiler on the farm. So once the bones have been boiled, they go onto the biomass boiler and they create energy for other things that are done on the farm. So procurement, is important, and it is a bit of a mission. Same goes for our tallow. Like, where do you find sources and sources of tallow? But people reach out, Instagram and social media, a blessing and a curse. And the blessing is that people are like, hi, we're 2 sisters. Our parents have a cattle farm in Zim. We don't know what to do with all our grass-fed tallow. There's just so many amazing people that reach out, and that's the way you can work with people you love and work with people that you connect with. And for me, nothing is better. Like, I would love to go around giving everyone money and hot food, but if you give someone a job and you create a connection where you can work together and there's that unity of all working for a great thing and everyone's benefiting, I love that more than anything.
What's the situation with beef bones at the moment? For a farm like that, when you're going along, are you procuring effectively a product that would be used as waste for the most part, or is there another use case for those bones?
No, up until broth became a thing, there was no use case for them. So the butcher in Fulham at the time was giving me 5 or 6 kgs of bones every Monday night with glee, because he was being charged £60 a week for that to be collected, and that was a cost to his bottom line. So I would pick it up in a big bag and walk down the street and make my broth, and then my Valentine's gift that year was a 70-litre stock pot, and I would boil them up and boil them up and boil them up. And so that's when I realized, okay, hold on a minute, there are tons of abattoirs shipping these bones off, paying, and then having to incinerate, which increases the carbon footprint, when in actual fact these things are liquid gold, as we know. Glycine, amino acids, collagen, all the things that were used traditionally to heal people. You know, some people say bone broth heals you, lifts you from the dead.
Yeah.
So I was like, that is shocking. And so that was a great thing is for the ethos of the company to be like, not only do we recycle, but we upcycle, which is maybe even more important.
Is there an economic fear that as this message of bone broth gets bigger and clearer, that farmers will cotton on to the fact that they actually have liquid gold and not just offcuts they want to give away for free? Is there a fear?
That happened very fast. And suddenly we were being charged not a lot of money, maybe a proportionate amount of money, but yeah, there's a business now in it for farmers. And I'm happy about that because they're doing the part that we need. You know, they're butchering, they're rearing, and sometimes not at the same place, sometimes yes at the same place. And we get access to our New Zealand grass-fed steak cut like that, just as we like it. And so again, maybe that would be part of the value cycle. And I really do appreciate that. Like if everyone's going to add value at some point in the circle, they can be remunerated for that.
Yeah.
And that was a big lesson for me as an entrepreneur. I always had this idea that like, I don't need, you know, I'm doing this because I love it. I don't need to be paid. And I'm like, even my team are like, Catherine, can we give you some more money? I'm like, no, it's fine. I love what I do. I don't work that hard, you know, but actually there's really something to be said for if you're in a cycle, you add value, you work.
Yeah.
You know, even it says in the Bible, like you get paid for what you do. You work with your hands, you make things and you sell and you're adding value to someone else's life. You deserve money for that.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for them that they do earn now, and that was quickly cottoned on years, not even 1 or 2 years. So,
yeah, I mean, going back to that point, I suppose, is that you were ahead of the curve. You know, I see a lot more companies now selling bone broth who haven't been around as long as you. What was it like being the sort of pathfinder in that journey?
Yeah, it was so amazing and so empowering. But I thought I should have read any case study. But I always go with my gut. You know, any case study would say the first mover can suffer because, as you say, you put yourself out there, you move ahead, you break barriers, you have to break status quo, you have to break educational shortcomings and really say to people, this is why, this is how, trust me, I can do it. And we got onto supermarket shelves and stuff. And then where I made mistakes and had to catch up, you know, other brands could just leapfrog. Yes. And that is the joy of a market. And that is the joy of different brands in a market. So I just take all the great things I learned from it. I love the idea that we were the first to market. I love the idea that I had the tenacity and the ability to break stereotypes and be able to be the first broth on the supermarket shelves in the UK. And also, I think the biggest learning was when my other companies came along and I saw other people doing similar things to what I wanted to do. There was never a barrier. Hold on a minute, I was the first mover, but that doesn't mean I'm the best. So I can do what I want to do my way, and there might be 3 other guys doing it, but they're them and I'm me. And so it was a great learning curve for me, and I don't ever I just look at it like that. Like, it was just so fantastic to learn, and I felt really proud of myself because that's where most people struggle. I felt proud for having a vision, seeing it through, and bringing it on to life, you know. And no, it's not easy, but if you care about it, it's amazing fun. Yeah. So first mover advantage is it's complicated, and I don't think there's any one which way for a first mover, but just everything is a lesson, everything is a journey. I imagine second and third movers, fourth movers, that all have their own story, and none of it would be a straight line.
Yeah.
With your skincare products and with your food line in Ossa, has creating that those products kind of revealed to you where other companies that use artificial ingredients and things like that, where their kind of benefit must come to play? Because I'm always curious to see why somebody might take a product that uses grass-fed beef or pasture-bred beef, and then they've added ingredients which you just wouldn't expect to sit alongside that particular ingredient. They're complete contradiction with each other. And I'm always curious as to when did that arrive in the supply chain process, and when did the person who created that product decide, oh, let's add that in? And I'm curious from your perspective, as you've been creating skincare, for example, using beef tallow, have you had that opportunity for the sort of foul ingredient, I'll call it, to be like, oh, this would lengthen the sort of shelf life or reduce our cost overall? And why do those kind of ingredients that we don't normally eat appear in our food and in our skincare?
I guess one of the best examples of that is that in the 70s, McDonald's used to cook their fries in beef tallow, and then they switched it to canola oil because it was cheaper, which is also, funnily enough, when the drastic rise of diabetes and obesity started in the US as well. But
It's a brilliant question. Look, that's the perfect example as well. It's often when the founder potentially doesn't actually really care. So sometimes you'll see brands whereby someone is trying to understand what's trending or seeing where there's a gap in the market, and then they'll do it with not enough understanding of the real vision or the idea behind the brand. So it would be totally counterintuitive for me to go and put petroleum base in the tallow, 30% tallow, 70% petroleum base or whatever. But if you didn't understand and you didn't really care, and the cost went down from £3 a unit to £1.50, I mean, you're going to be like, absolutely, go for it. That's no brainer. A perfect example in my life is when we sat in front of a supermarket, online supermarket that we worked with for 5 or 6 years, amazingly so. We had a lovely time working with them, and I really enjoyed it. And he turned to me at one point and he went, but if you replaced ghee, you know this thing you ghee, which he sold, let's take that out, let's put sunflower oil in, oh look, you're meeting the cost I need you to meet. I was like, sayonara, dude, no.
Yeah.
And also the biggest, most empowering thing for me is what is my motive? Am I here to make $1 billion or am I here to educate people? And that conversation would have gone a very different way if I wanted to remain there, meeting their costs and be pushed. And the same comes with investment conversations. Maybe these are all the reasons. The founder potentially doesn't really understand what they're doing, and they're doing something that's trendy, but that doesn't make them a bad person. So it's less of a passion project. There's costs to be cut, which is the perfect example for McDonald's. And you could take that a step further and say, okay, there's an agenda, because we know beef fat really helps. It's full of vitamins A, D, E, and K. It's a natural fat for the body. It's bioavailable on the skin. It's the best thing ever to make fries with. But they needed to sell canola oil. And that's an agenda that comes from the top, And then products like, let's add, this shelf extender, or let's add, this E number or whatever. Again, I just think it's a lack of understanding. If you'd never been exposed to someone who'd suffered in their life because the child had been covered in Johnson's talc powder their whole entire life, or the woman was, woman using talcum powder as a vaginal antibacterial douche or whatever they do, they encourage that. Those women, there's lawsuits out for all of those women who are dead by the age of 60 with cervical cancer. And Johnson & Johnson talc powder struck off the market, but no one knows about it. No one knows about it. So if you hadn't had a close experience with how these chemicals can affect your skin and your body, really, why would you be bothered?
Yeah, right.
And that's been the hardest part for me, is saying, no, we're not going to make a mascara the way you want us to make it. And until I can do it my way, we won't do mascara.
Yeah.
And for a couple of days or weeks in Dubai, at least, was walking around with charcoal and arrowroot powder that just ran down my face. And I was like, okay, this is an experiment gone bad. But I do draw the line at certain ingredients. But also I want to be 80-20. I never want to be we use mica as a pigment shimmer. And some people say that the way it's mined, you can get mica that's unethically mined. We do the sustainable best variant of that or whatever. And some people would say, I never want to put that mineral from the earth on my skin. Well, I want shiny on my cheeks. Do you know what I mean? And that's how I am. And so it's that 80-20. And I know in my heart that there's nothing toxic and everything's amazing. But at the same time, I don't want to live on unscented beef tallow that hasn't been whipped straight out of the jar, which I started off doing. So it's a bit of it's a compromise. But then people would say I never compromise and I have very high standards that work for me. That is true. It depends where you are on the scale.
I think as well, for the average onlooker walking down a supermarket shopping aisle, and this is actually a kind of another personal question and interest I have, is that when you're looking for ingredients that do suit you and don't suit you, you might turn over a product, and let's imagine a product which is primarily egg. But alongside of it, they have some preservatives and all of the E's and the powders and all the rest of it. And then on the back of the product, so often, egg, of all of the 17 ingredients that are inside of that product, is highlighted as the potential allergen. And I'm always confused by that, because of all of those, if I ate any of them in excess, it would be the egg last of all. And for the majority of the population, would be the least problematic ingredient. So do you have could you enlighten me to that as to why and how supermarkets and food companies decide what on the back of their products is either an allergen or a bad for you and things like that?
Well, in America, the FDA regulates these things. If you want to know the latest case, multi-million-dollar YouTuber, whose name escapes me, launched a drink called Prime Enengy drink. coconut water and a few other things. Now, if you didn't know how to read a label, you'd be like, coconut water, my kid loves this, YouTuber, woohoo. Just been struck with $1 billion lawsuit, whatever it might be, for having more forever chemicals in one bottle of Prime than an adult is able to tolerate in their entire life. Is a forever chemical an allergen? No. Is egg an allergen? 100%. Is fish an allergen? 100%. Are certain other things like could dairy be seen as an allergen? 100%. So toxicity of a ingredient is not on the FDA's radar. What is on the radar is something that could cause anaphylactic shock.
Okay.
And that is what they mean by an allergen. So little girl eats Pret sandwich, as we heard on the airplane, and dies. That is what they're concerned about. And this is the sadness of the world, because that is a once-off 1 in a million. But the chronic disease that people are suffering from today is a result of all the other stuff that never gets highlighted or educated upon, because it builds up slowly and slowly and slowly. Now imagine a mother that's child let him take Prime to school every single day for the last 3 years or something. The drink's only been out for that amount of time. That kid is going to be ill.
It's just a legal issue, really. It's what's the quick traceable death versus the slow one 100%. That you could never prove.
And you can put down to anything. Cancer, shame everyone gets cancer.
Yeah, well, his phone was too close to his head. But if you eat that egg and you die immediately, it seems society is okay with the slow poisoning.
We're condoning it.
Yeah.
We are all condoning it, and we're all playing part in it, and we're all blinkered. And again, a little bit like what we were talking about earlier, there is a brainwashing agenda when it comes to food. And you can see people be like, oh, they're a nut bag, oh, they're a health case, oh, they're so extreme, blah, blah. But we have to be, because having a business now in both the food and the beauty industry, the regulation is not good enough.
Two of the worst, most poorly regulated industries, and so intimate, on your face, in your mouth.
And no one's telling you anything. And the greenwashing on packaging is another thing. So when it comes to labeling food, allergens and stuff like that, you have to be very careful with. But how you use words on pack, if X% of your product is natural, you can say all natural or natural or extremely natural or even natural at all. So some women, it's enough for them to pick up an emollient for their child that says natural. But it's 97% petrochemical byproduct, petroleum, and then a couple of other things. So you cannot trust anything. I say to my children, if it's free, run a mile. And if it's advertised to you, do your homework.
Yeah. It's interesting that the most heavily marketed products are all unnatural. When was the last time we saw any marketing on a ribeye?
When was the last time we were told, fry a steak in beef fat, sprinkle salt, and we just don't, anything that is well, it can't be patented, it can't be packaged, it can't be branded, it can't be trademarked.
Yeah, it's an interesting
I see shampoo bottles, right, and sometimes it's glaringly obvious how powerful the messaging has to be, because you'll see a shampoo and they're described as natural, and it'll say on the front of the bottle 95% natural ingredients. And I think to myself, how much less would they sell of that shampoo if instead of saying 95% natural, it said 5% petroleum?
5% toxic,
And in that moment, you realise, okay, this is a case of selling me the item as opposed to letting the item sell itself. And that's going to be a big thing. But with regards to the forever chemicals and helping people, because I think people are becoming more and more aware of the ingredients in their food and they care more and more.
Yeah.
But when you flip over the product that you're intending on buying to eat, the ingredients of forever chemicals are made of nothing of. They're sort of gumbled together in a paragraph that becomes kind of typical of any product you turn over. Do you think it's likely that from a kind of regulatory perspective, one day will come where indeed they have to highlight forever chemicals alongside the allergens? No. So it's going to be it's the responsibility of the individual to understand.
We need to learn that the majority of our food should be as it's seen in nature. It kind of says that in the Bible. Like, have a look around. If you can recognize what a thing is, eat it and enjoy it and love it. So we eat like you do. My children, we eat avocados, fruit, really good, delicious lashings of fruit, meat.
Yeah.
And most of the time, I spend time teaching women how to heal their children from the ground up, or themselves, when there's real gut dysbiosis and issues that start here but manifest in behavior and classroom this and sleeping this and nightmares that, and you can go on and on. And the building blocks of the body are the basic amino acids that come from meat. Some people have gone off of meat for so long, or have this awkward behavior, like mental attitude towards meat or whatever, that then they feel uncomfortable, so they would start with something like broth, because you still get the amino acids and the protein, and you can work your way up to a big ribeye steak. But meats and fruit, I mean, I'm quite anti vegetables. My mother-in-law is always like, I see your children don't eat vegetables. I'm like, no ways they don't eat. I mean, obviously we'll pan fry a couple of leeks in coconut oil every now and then, and they love raw carrots, and but we definitely don't eat a myriad of vegetables in our home.
No, but I think it's a hard one, because you grow up, you watch things like Popeye, and spinach is so good for you, and then you look into it as you get older, and you're like, oh, well, spinach is full of oxalates, and oxalates can cause kidney stones and gallstones, and it's like, oh, okay, this is quite interesting. And that, I think, is, you're fighting multiple heads of the hydra when firstly you start talking about how red meat is good for you. That's obviously a big shock to most people, and then you start turning around saying, like, by the way, like, all of the vegetables you're eating en masse, they're not actually as good for you as you think they are. That seems to be the one that really spins heads. And
it's that same brainwashing as a child. Eat your vegetables. But I always bring it back to my weaning analogy. So a child is born, they're fed off of mother's milk if they're lucky enough, and if the mother's able to. And I always advocate wholly for breastfeeding, but I've breastfed 3 boys. I know how hard it is, and I know that some women don't manage with the best intentions. Breast milk is north of 80% cholesterol. It's pure fat. It feeds the brain. The most important thing, the brain is pure all fat. It needs fat. We need fat. And then what we do is we're told, cut off the milk, their fat supply, and give them rice cereal and some steamed zucchini. That's when they come to me and they're like, my child's starving, he's screaming, he's uncomfortable, he's this and okay. Well, first and foremost, if when you start to wean a child, normally around the age of 6 months, you will see that they eat very little. They might eat 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons at a meal, and hopefully the mother would keep up that breast milk for as long as you possibly could. Now I say to a woman, steam a zucchini, mash it, and put some on a teaspoon. What's your child getting? Nothing but hot air. Now pull some shredded lamb, a pinch or 2 of rock salt, 1 grain, whatever, some ghee, some coconut oil, fat, and maybe, I don't know, like or mash avocado, or we want the nutrient density of that teaspoon to be like this, so that the child is full and nourished, and the brain feels satiated, and the behavioral things work, and the teeth align correctly, and all the things that are meant to happen. The building blocks of the body are there in that small teaspoon of food. And that's when people start to think, oh, hold on a minute. The last week I've juiced 48 heads of kale. This medical medium oak that came out with all the celery, and then everyone was juicing celery, but no one ever thought about getting organic celery or washing their celery. I mean, and you wonder why you don't feel that great. It's the teaspoon analogy. There's nothing in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually, on the teaspoon analogy, when you take a highly processed grain or a seed or a carbohydrate that comes from a vegetable you wouldn't find necessarily in nature, you could take 20 corn on the cobs, you could take a whole load of grains and compress them through processing into flour. And all of a sudden you can fit a vast amount of the original whole food onto a single teaspoon. So now any sort of toxins that were in the plant, which you could only have eaten 1 corn on the cob yourself, you're now eating 30 in a single teaspoon. Yes. So the spectrum is so wide for how different that teaspoon of nutrients can be, which is crazy.
Yeah, and people don't seem to understand that processed nature of things. So I'll get a woman to understand all of this, and 2 times out of 10, the husband comes on the call, and he's very interested, and I always love that. And then they'll be like, okay. And then the next week I'll get a call, oh, Freddie ate gluten-free pasta, gluten-free. I'm like, no, remember what I said, just because then they go and shop for the version of that thing that doesn't have the things they're trying to avoid. Yeah. Again, a lie.
Yeah.
Again, a lie, because there's going to be corn flour and maize, and all that's going to be filled with all the things that we don't want as well.
Yes.
So real food, whole food is kind of always the answer for me. And going, what we were saying earlier, trusting yourself, that's the biggest part of my education piece, is like, so many women know what they want for their birth. They know how they want to feed their children. They know they want to vaccinate or they don't. They know what they want, but they don't have it in them to fight mother, grandmothers, mothers, even within our family, like the hardest conversations to have are with the people closest to you when you're doing something against the grain of the family, culturally, spiritually, whatever it might be,
And people are still starting to learn, I think, about the comparison of price versus nutrition. So, bone broth and beef, generally speaking, all meat really can be from the outset quite expensive to the sort of casual onlooker. but it's not until you compare its nutrition value to products which are priced half the price that you actually start to see that there's a real economy to eating whole nutritious food. I have a question about the selling the product and informing your marketplace. It seems to me that your product, because you've come at it from a perspective of sort of authenticity, it's a product you believe in and you didn't necessarily build it to make lots of money. When you do find someone educated in the marketplace, like let's describe a mum who knows what she wants, have you found in the there's been a difference online with people who kind of seek out the product? I mean, it's like SEO doesn't seem to me from the sidelines something you would have to worry about quite so much as somebody who's flogging like phone cases. Because when somebody knows they want bone broth, then they're on that journey and then they're going to explore your products deeper than they would other products. So it seems to me from a kind of brand perspective, it's actually more from your point, and I noticed you've done this very well, is informing them behind the product. So this is what the product looks like, this is how much it costs, sure, but then this is the supply chain, this is a bit about me. And so I imagine, like, for example, I know it's a bit tedious, but like the conversion rate for bone broth when people are on your website must be quite high because it fulfills everything they're hoping it will fulfill when they're searching for bone broth, because otherwise you're not really looking for bone broth, right? You're looking for other things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. But remember that person that's looking for bone broth and that understands it is 1%, the top 1%.
Wow.
And so 9 years later, we've reached that market. We're talking to them. They know us. They love us. We have a 45% return rate week on week. Ossa Organic now is what we call gut health pantry staples. You know, these are things people always want. They cook with every day. They're always using them. The ghees, the fats, and so it's kind of like once you've got to those people, it is my duty and my honor to then open it up to the next level. You don't yet know what you need. And that's where we are now. And that's where things like SEO really help, because you're not preaching to the converted, but you're preaching to the curious.
Yeah.
So
what's healthy?
What is healthy? Or even my best person ever to work with is, what's healthy? Rice cereal, blah, blah, blah is healthy. Okay, let me try that. Sicker.
Yeah.
End of the year. I've listened to everything my doctors told me. I've listened to all the guidelines. I've done everything. I am over it. Tell me the truth. What's really actually going on here? You know, and then we can be like, okay, let's break it down. These are the building blocks. This is how the body works. This is what resilience is. This is what immunity is. This is how we undo everything you've been taught. This is how you start to parent. Stop crying. It's okay. Because for most mothers have this, men are more like, it's an amazing thing about men is that you can compartmentalize, but you also just move on. Women ruminate and they look back and they blame themselves. I wasn't a better mother. I would have ended up with a cesarean. I told the midwife I didn't want this. That's the conversation. I should have been stronger. Husband's in the corner, not sure what he's supposed to be doing. He should have stood up for me. Then my child was born that way. I knew that I didn't want them to have the flu shot, but then everyone was doing it. So, and then this person gets a 5-year-old child that's really ill and they hate themselves. And I always say to the mother, stop. What you've been shown is a cascade of unfortunate things that have happened to you, but these needed to happen in order for like the scales to come off. Because in life, things get harder and harder and harder and harder until you listen and go, oh, okay, I need to make a change. You're not going to learn any other way. If you were going to learn at the first step, you would have had a home birth and the rest would have been history, but it doesn't work like that. So we want to look at all of our symptoms as a real gift. We really do. And so now we're talking to those people. And then beyond that, we would be talking to people that, I don't know, just might want to try something different to stock cubes because they've noticed there's MSG in some stock cubes or something like that. So it is a bit of a tiered approach. But yes, at the very top end, we get people going, I'm so glad I found you. I'm so happy I found you. I've been looking for this all my life. Or I've been trying to make broth, but I don't have time. I'm a busy mom. I'm so happy that I've got it in the freezer. And weekends I make my own, but then weekdays I have that. And then the next level, and then the next level. And that's why I was saying to you guys earlier that the Kinetic Blueprint was born. Yeah. Because so many people are hungry to learn.
So what is the Kinetic Blueprint, just for me and the listeners?
Kinetic Blueprint is an online education platform, effectively. I mean, I say platform, it makes me laugh because at the moment it's just like an opportunity for you to learn, but there's nothing formal there yet, but we are building it out. Because so many people are like, my friend suggested my child starts drinking broth. I don't know anything about it. I bought broth, and 3 months later I can see something in him. So I want to have a good understanding of what I'm doing and why. And it ranges from things like eczema to birth to trauma to gut health to how you're sleeping to understanding circadian rhythms to children's emotional intelligence to, all the things that you don't really get taught.
Yeah.
And moms are hungry for that knowledge today because it's just gone one step too far, where they've been pushed too far and they're not seeing any results. And the biggest area in which I've been able to help is eczema, because women, from the day that their child has some kind of compromised skin, they get pushed into that medical cycle. Allopathic medicine loves the anti. Okay, you've got inflammation, anti-inflammatory, steroid, antihistamine, but don't use it for too long. Oh, okay, I better stop. Eczema goes threefold. Why? Because you're suppressing all the symptoms. The body's screaming out, saying the toxic load in me is too much. It pushes out that an over-inflammatory response through the skin. And so that brings me back to these women in this kind of like second layer that we target. Look at everything that you are dealing with at the moment as a gift. The eczema is the way shower for the next part of your life, for all the things you're going to learn, you know. So Kinetic Blueprint kind of allows for me to have formal conversations with those people, men and women, because before I was all day long on Instagram. Hi, Mary, you know, guys, just can we pause the team meeting? Mary is in serious trouble. Her child never slept last night. She's in States. I know exactly what she needs. Mary, it's Catherine, you know. And then my team were actually like, Catherine, you like 7 hours a day to Mary and all her friends, and your time is important. And it did override. It was my husband as well that was like, you're not a free helpline.
Yeah, but also it's not just about being free, it's about creating a system that's more effective to address 100 Marys at once rather than one every other hour when you've got a free moment.
100%. And the difficulty in that was I did the 100 Marys at once, and everyone's is so unique. So then all the different 100 Marys had, you know, so now I'm finding that if someone really wants to get to it, that personalized approach really does help. So so now people can do that overarching course, and then if they want to reach out in different areas, there's ways for them to go, because everybody is resilient in its own way. Everybody is weak in its own way. Everyone's circumstances are different. So for some woman whose child is sleeping in a bedroom riddled with mold, she can do as much of the protocol as she likes. If she doesn't click that it's the mold, she's never going to get that child well. So it's having that ability. You know, you would be so surprised if the number of times I say to people, like, some things are even spiritual. Like, are there any strange things happening here? This sounds to me like there's some strange things happening in your house. Well, when the woman explained to me the things that were happening in her house, I was like, you know, you couldn't make it up. So it's gut, it's toxins in our life and in our environment, in the air, circadian rhythm, all that kind of stuff, our bedroom, how we're sleeping, electromagnetic frequency, all of that. It's trauma, which people aren't enough informed about. Men specifically, the way that they deal with it is different. And then it's the spiritual element, like how because we're spiritual beings, like we're vessels, and some people have spiritual experiences and some don't. But in many instances, that also plays a part. So connecting all those dots can be a full-time job, and moms do want the best for their children. But some people would walk into a moldy room, rock their baby to sleep every night, and not even have a sense that could be like kryptonite to the child.
I think that's probably a problem with modern medicine, is it's too targeted. You know, it's like, I've got a rash. Well, let's deal with that rash. Let's not look at why the rash may be there in the first place, and how we can look at things holistically to make sure that rash goes away and stays away permanently.
And even the best, most caring, most dedicated doctor in the world in this system doesn't have the time to say, is there mold in your child's bedroom? Is there anything else that you can think of that's a little bit out of kilter or whatever? They just don't have the time. And it's that anti. So you've got this thing, we give you the anti of it, and that doesn't ever get down to that systematic root cause. And that's what causes, again, what we were talking about earlier, that chronic illness elaborated upon by the food that we're eating, the forever chemicals, the dyes. And that is why eczema is a very new disease. It's prolific. Autoimmune disease, where people's own immune systems, their own bodies are attacking themselves. Every second person's got Crohn's, Hashimoto's, everyone. Alopecia, you know.
It was a big one for me, realizing that gut health directly related to mental health. It was the experience that was profoundly awakening for me when I tried a animal-based diet and realized that the rumination I believed was a kind of part of my personality, where you kind of are nervous about the future and all the rest of it. Granted, those things can still occur. But when I changed what was going into my gut, you're almost astounded by the fact that mental aspect leaves you. And all of a sudden, you're kind of scratching your head, and you move from a position of eating what you believe you're meant to eat to kind of experiencing what you're meant to eat. And the two of them are just incomparable. What is your position on supplements? There's a YouTube influencer who, I know, Paul Saladino, who has brought out that what's it called? Heart and Soul.
Yeah. All the offal, the livers,
the sort of
capsules, the desiccated organs.
What's your perspective on that, and do you think that's something that you might build into your offering in the future?
We have a supplement range at the moment, which is the collagen and the gelatin. I always will say that, you can really quickly fall into that trap. And so many women at the end of the call will be like, so what supplements must I take? And
Everyone's
I'll always
looking
say,
for that shortcut, aren't they?
Yeah, what pill can I take? Supplement is exactly that. It's in supplement too. So if you are like on something every single day, I always think, oh, I'm not too sure. But when I don't know how I got low iron, because I only ever eat meat, but I got fairly ill in the desert over Christmas. We'd be out in the desert, and I ate liver for 3 days after I got back, and I was absolutely fine. So that might be some like version of a supplement. If I couldn't have access to that and the Saladino's liver was there, that would be fantastic. Supplements are important, and they definitely have a place, especially for people that are so deprived of certain things. And if you can't swallow liver and you're not eating nose to tail and you're not eating in the way that the three of us are, you'd be struggling, as we were talking about earlier. So supplements is a minefield of an industry. You can get anything you want on Amazon, but everything half the time is absolute rubbish, really sadly. Anyone can open a supplement business. You third party it to a packer in China, and they'll give you anything that you want, and you can design your label and say this, that, and the next thing. So please read the labels. Any kind of like fillers, binders, all that kind of stuff, try to stay away from. Anything sublingual is often better. I often say to people, just send me a picture and I'll have a look, but I can't do that for everyone. But you got to have your own spirit of discernment. You've got to be able to start discerning. If you're interested really, truly in your health, you've got to be able to start discerning. There's some things that are like amazing for times of low immunity, like vitamin C. Living in the UK, unfortunately, I don't love the idea of vitamin D supplementation, but without it, you struggle, and you need sunlight to synthesize with cholesterol under the skin to make vitamin D. And if you don't have that, children as well will suffer. And in Africa, oddly enough, a lot of young black African children have rickets. Why? Rickets is an extreme lack of vitamin D in the body because the melanin in a black skin is so high. They struggle to absorb the rays of the sun, and because black skin turns black and black and blacker, black people often try and cover up from the sun.
Well, they say that's why ethnic minorities, particularly in this country, disproportionately suffered more from COVID is because they're far more likely to be vitamin D deficient, which obviously has a huge role in the immune system. So it does make sense that people in those warmer countries where you think, well, how can you be vitamin D deficient? It's because culturally people are spending more time inside, and the darker your skin, you need to be outside longer than if you have lighter skin.
Yeah, it's so ironic. And then obviously there's the whole sun cream debacle. With people slathering their kids in toxic 50 plus before they've even put one finger in the sun. That's another piece I spend a lot of time. Please let your child sit in the sun. They're like, what? For how long? For how many minutes? How? No. If you go into the sun at 7, 8, 9 in the morning, it's healing. So I'm proud of our supplements. They're additional. They're like with the gelatin for making gummies and marshmallows. We encourage people to do that. There's really so many people doing that because of the amazing things that gelatin gives to children. They love it. It's a quick and easy, like sweet treat. And the collagen is fantastic because sometimes you need more collagen, and you can only drink so much broth and cook with so much broth. And we are looking at certain things in our supplement range, which we're really, really excited about. But I always say, like, nothing that you live on religiously, even probiotics. I'm like, sometimes eat prebiotics through food. Sometimes your gut is fine. Other times you use a bit of a probiotic. Sometimes you want the Saccharomyces boulardii, which I recommend for skin. Sometimes you want this probiotic. Sometimes drink some sauerkraut juice. You can't have a cupboard that you're opening up every day. And activated charcoal is one I highly recommend everyone's got in their cupboard. It's I suppose a detoxifying supplement for tummy aches, for food poisoning, for any kind of in fact, if you went into hospital with a child that had drunk bleach or something, they often use activated charcoal because it's so absorbent and so powerful in binding toxins. And
I heard about activated charcoal for food poisoning and things like that. Apparently the effect is remarkable in just drawing out all those toxins into the charcoal.
And even if my husband and I have travelled and we know that we haven't eaten the way that we want to, we take activated charcoal through those nights. Or if you go to a restaurant, they're cooking with sunflower oil and stuff like that, activated charcoal works a charm. If my children ever get tummy aches with vomiting or diarrhea, it's amazing. And you can use it topically as well. You can use it to draw out blemishes on the skin. You can use it for bee stings. You can use it for a myriad of different things.
Talking about the sun brings me to Fierce Nature. And obviously, and actually a bit of your marketing as well. Before I move on to the marketing, do you want to just to let everyone know what Fierce Nature is?
Yeah, Fierce Nature was like a part of my plan for the last 10 years. And I remember when I convinced this farmer to start making bone broth, he was like, I'm really taking a chance on you, Catherine. And I was like, okay, please trust me, please trust me. And he did, and he was amazing. And I said, and you know what? Down the line, we'll do business together because I'm going to make a skincare range with beef fat. And he was like, and I think he thought she'll forget about it.
You made him more nervous.
Yeah, she'll never get there. She'll never get there. But every year I was like, guys, can we do the beef fat now to my team? And they were like, no, stop. Let's just focus. And then my third son was born. I remember, I think he was about 6 months old. And I was like, it's time. And I just quickly went on to GoDaddy and bought a website, and the rest was history. I couldn't keep it in another minute.
Yeah.
So it basically is a range of skincare staples, makeup, sun cream, bug balm, dry shampoo, everything that is non-toxic but rooted in tallow at the base, which a lot of people freak out about. But in our recent launch in Dubai, we had 30 female influencers from 2 million followers down to 40,000, and every single one of them came to understand why you would use beef fat as an emollient aside from petroleum. So if I actually came to you and said, do you want to put natural animal fat that Inuit people cover their children in to keep them warm, that Russian princesses smeared all over their face because it fed their skin with vitamins, or do you want to cover yourself in a byproduct of the petroleum industry that no one can sell? And so they've packed it into your skincare. You know, and people, you know the answer, but it's suddenly the beef fat, the natural emollient is gross, you know? You're like,
yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But I think that brings me to the marketing point, because I think that, and it's what you do really well, but education is your best friend when it comes to marketing.
Yes.
So I remember I came onto Fierce Nature because I follow Paul Saladino as well. And in one of his Instagram shorts, he made a beef tallow sun cream, and I thought, God, I love, but the way he's making it, I'm thinking, I can't just whip this up in my kitchen. This isn't for me. And then lo and behold, the algorithm got me, and the next time I opened Instagram was Fierce Nature, and then I couldn't believe it that it was run by you as well. I was like, everything this woman makes, I buy and love.
Yeah, lots of people are like, but you. Oh no, some people are like, there's another girl that looks like you. She's doing this thing. You must shut her down.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
No, that is me.
Were you ever tempted to keep it within the brand of Ossa? Because
We tried. Actually, I've still got another exciting thing in the works. So there was always going to be 3. So I've done the first 2. And the third one will be next year, but they were always going to be, Ossa's going to have these 3 arms. And then we did a little bit of market research, and people were like, it would feel really weird to buy things that I'm eating and then to buy dry shampoo from the same brand. People couldn't correlate it in their minds. So Fierce Nature was born. Paul Saladino is amazing because he's a doctor. He's a medical doctor, and that has got a lot of people to trust him and understand him. And a lot of the stuff you definitely could make in your kitchen, but like me, you just don't, because we're all busy and we've got things to do. So the sun cream was one of my most exciting ones. After Bo, my third son, was born, and I speak a lot about that as well on my channel, because I'd had 2 emergency cesareans to my devastation. Ended up after my second birth with post-traumatic stress disorder, waking up at night, every night for hours, like, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? How do I sue the doctor? This one lied to me. This one, my husband was like, just put the phone down and go to sleep. You're hurting yourself. But when you have post-traumatic stress disorder, you cannot do that. I think I know at this moment about 20 women with post-traumatic stress disorder from birth. Bo was born 4 years ago. This is an absolute pandemic that's going on in the world of birth. Anyway, when he was born at home, unmedicated, rogue. I was like, no one is coming near me, and this is how I'm going to do this. I know I can do this, and because my second birth, I was like, okay, I'm never going to end up with a cesarean again, but I trusted the system. And anyway, that's a story for another day. So after Bo was born at home, and that whole thing, which was so amazing, I started to then make up all the creams for him, because I didn't want him using anything else. And really, you think I don't want to go to Whole Foods and buy something and be like, I'm so happy with this for my children, but everything I bought, I was like, I'm not happy with this.
Yeah.
Even at Whole Foods. I think someone told me Whole Foods in Fulham had shut down. Because I was starting to go to Whole Foods and having to look for things that I wanted amongst all the mess and the clutter that shouldn't actually be under that umbrella.
And that was why it existed in the first place, so you
That's
could finally
why,
go
so
in
that
there.
you could trust.
Yeah.
So that's when I started to make it myself, and then I realized like things like sun cream, bug balm, dry shampoo, you know, a Baptiste, which I used to use when I was here, because I don't color my hair, I color my eyebrows and my eyelashes. But every day, you know, you'd put a bit of that like dry shampoo, blah, 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 okay, I'm on the tube, yeah. And I used to carry it in my bag. And it came out that it's full of benzene. Like I just had to stand next to something and go up in flames. And every single woman it would fly off the supermarket shelves. And that's a recent lawsuit no one knows about. So that's where the dry shampoo was born. And the range is really just everything that a woman, you know, there's bar mascara. We see people wanting toothpaste and mascara. And we're coming out with a hydroxyapatite tooth powder now because people are still learning about fluoride in toothpaste and stuff like that. But I really am proud of the range. And if people can get over that education piece, you will feel transformed, you know.
So would you say that's your ultimate vision, is to create these superior natural products that people can just buy without even having to look at the back of it once they're educated?
That's my ultimate vision. My ultimate vision is underneath this holding company, there's 3, as I said, of the Ossa, Fierce Nature, and then the 3rd, which will be unveiled next year, which we're excited about. And before they get to that product, I always say to people, I don't want to be that person that's selling you a product. I don't want to be that person going, buy this for $9.99. I want to be the person that changes your mind. And then when you're in that mindset and you're inspired and you go look no further. Because that's half the problem. It's like, I'm going to link it to Christianity because I speak on my podcast, which is called Kinetic Blue, linked to Kinetic Blueprint. About what happened to me in that sphere. Like if you suddenly meet Jesus or your whole life changes, but then you've got nowhere to learn and you kind of like, you become hungry for that kind of stuff. I see a number of people that are like, I won't go down this path anymore. I don't want to listen to what I'm being sold. I want different things, but there's nothing available. So that solution, those products are there as a solution. Once your mind has been changed, once you've been inspired, once you've been fed up and you've had enough and you need something different, and you're doing it out of your own motivation, not out of me saying, if you buy 5, you get 4 for free, you know, because I'm just trying to sell in that moment, in that month.
Yeah.
It's more like an end. It's more like the joy of the realization that you're going to now live your life differently. And I always say that to first-time moms or that have got one child that's suffering and they've got 2 more, or they've got the baby suffering, but the older ones are okay. Well, if you're going to change your lifestyle for baby, your 2 big ones are going to absolutely benefit. All the children must eat this way. All the children must be taught this way. You let them all understand sun cream and whatever it might be, because people do think that children are stupid. I mean, really they do. I'm like, children are, you can talk. I've got 10, 8 and 3. My 3-year-old, because he's got 10 and 8-year-old brothers, I could talk to him about very complex things. And he knows exactly what's what. Why are we not talking to our children about these things? You know, if you don't teach your children about spiritual matters of the world, about the way of the world in terms of food, about television, television, and the underlying programming of some of the TV shows that they're watching. When you have children, just watch TV with them. You'll be horrified. If you're not going to tell them about this, someone else will.
You find a lot of people, especially in the workplace, if you decide to work in an office or a business and you don't have a lot of chance to do activity, physical activity, and your metabolism begins to slow, which it happens to all of us now, early or late 20s, and you find yourself sort of kicking yourself into not training harder, or it's maybe a individual perspective. But what happens is as you begin to sort of expand around the waist and you grow older, you figure that is a consequence of making poor decisions in your activity or lifestyle. So you're not going to the gym enough, you're not working out, and you believe that the kind of you are to blame in essence for your poor health, and then you change what you eat to the kind of foods we've been discussing today, and all of a sudden, without no increase in activity, although that's probably good in any event, your body becomes tuned to how it's meant to be. And it's a really interesting thing to experience. And I always think that irrespective of someone's looking at your bone broth or looking at a product that claims to be healthy in the shopping centre like a grenade bar, you can only really trust yourself. And one of the most powerful things about your product and other products like it, what gets us so excited, is that nothing is more honest and authentic than experience. And so you can watch a Netflix propaganda piece like Game Changers and you can be fooled. But you can't be fooled about the experience itself, or what it's like to actually live following that kind of protocol, if you'd call it that. Do you think that as time goes on and people start to experience the difference of how they can feel internally, that we'll start to see a domino effect, and that 1% that exists at the moment will turn into quite rapidly a kind of full market capture, because it seems to me once you see it, once you feel it, you can't unsee it. It's kind of like you're cursed with it almost. Courtney and I talk quite often about how now we kind of miss the days where you would just naively eat Domino's pizza. It was the tastiest thing you'd eaten all week. And those days are gone.
Yeah,
and you can't even have it taste as delicious because you know now what it is that you're eating.
Oh, it's a brilliant question. It's my life mission. It's like why Ossa Organic's like slogan is it's a gut feeling. Because if we all trusted our own gut feeling and we all used our own feedback as the absolute baseline for feedback, we wouldn't be susceptible to any marketing or any food brainwashing or any way of life, because we would eat vegan for a week and be like, I feel awful. This is not right. But instead we're going, well, I must be doing something wrong. Because Bob down the road lost 50 kilos and he looks amazing. He's been eating peaches for a year, you know. And so it's just leaning back into your own trust, as you say. And yes, I think Saladino talks about it as well, that exercise is great. It's a great addition. But ideally, we're moving our bodies most of the day. We're walking around. I mean, not as much as we used to, but it's a supplement. In supplement to your diet, you can lose a huge amount of weight just by simply eating what you are designed to eat.
Yes.
And so to that point, I would say to anyone listening, just if you what's insanity? You know, keep doing the same thing and getting the same results. If you're sluggish, if you can't lose weight, if your metabolism is low, for me and for you guys, we talked about it, meat and fat. Suddenly you lose like those 3, 4, 5 kilos, you feel great. Then when you feel great, you want to move more. You want to walk more. You want to flex more. You want to stretch more. You want to, then you suddenly, the whites of your eyes get whiter. Then suddenly your hair feel, and so on and so on. And you are the case study for the way in which you should be eating. No one can tell you how to eat. No one can tell you how to think. No one can tell you what you need. No one can tell you how to parent, mother, father your child.
Yeah.
But the whole world is about this agenda that you know nothing and you need to look outside of yourself for support, for help, and for guidance. For someone else who also has no clue about themselves, but has some kind of letters on a paper that makes you think they're going to now have a clue about you.
Yeah.
We opened with that when we arrived.
No, indeed.
We're learning from people that are sick, fat, and unhealthy how to be healthy. We're learning from people that have lost all their money and live on credit card debt about how to run money and do economics. And so that's that is the absolute overarching thing, is that if everyone reconnected to who they really are and what works for them in their life and used their own feedback as the greatest way shower, we would be a world of really healthy, connected and amazing people, because there is no one size fits all solution. So that's why when you see something on TV being marketed to the masses, you think, well, maybe for some, but not for me. And we've got to start thinking like that.
Yeah. But I think it's a shame because, the three of us in this room, and I'm sure a few people listening as well, have taken health as an interest. It's now an interest in your life. So I now read books and I now watch films and I now listen to podcasts with people like yourself so I can learn. And it's a shame that the state of society today is that you have to have that enthusiasm to learn in order to get it right. You can't just stumble into Tesco's and buy the food that the food that's on offer, the food with the flashy marketing. None of that's good for you. And the food that is promoted as being good for you under the guise of health, using that marketing, the Huels, the grenade bars, are just as bad. A Mars bar is no worse for you than a grenade bar. Ready meal is no worse for you than a Huel. It's just fancy marketing, and someone drops a supplement into a piece of crap and says this is now a health food. And I suppose that's where people like yourself come in, and you're going to have to carry the cross for this educational piece.
And if I may, why are they allowed to call it healthy? I mean, is that a conversation? You've had a lot of conversations with the high ups in the supermarkets of the UK. It seems to me like surely Huel or whatever, they have to prove that the product is healthy. And what's the metric they're using to prove that a seed oil based drink is a healthy alternative?
Look at the widely accepted food pyramid. Look at the widely accepted food pyramid. People are running off of that. Our diet should be 80% grains, full of glyphosate, non-organically farmed. Fat should be very little, right high at the top. That's what we've learned throughout school. And that's probably why I homeschool my children, because I'm like, everything you learn at school, you need to then undo. Spend your whole adult life being like, it's okay to eat fat, it's okay to eat, So that is why. And also there is, it sounds so like conspiracy theory-ish, but there is really a large agenda at play. If you want a nation of really happy, healthy, strong men, masculine men leading, women who, in the Bible it says submissive in this word, that's a trigger word to people, but who understand the place of men in the world, who understand the place of women in the world, who value the nuclear family, who value marriage. None of this cool, like, oh, dude, let's go to the bar and cheat on our wives. Men that marry a woman that is the mother of their children, and that family against all odds is protected and loved. And then that woman, I keep bringing back the Bible, but the Bible says that woman should go and gather from different places the best food in the land for her husband, first and foremost, and then her children, for the strength of that nuclear unit. Teaching them what you as a couple believe, not what society believes, not what some teacher with a hangover who doesn't care and is getting way underpaid believes, what you believe. Put that upon your children, gather your food, keep everything nuclear, and if everyone lived in that way, move, walk, experience nature, do work that pleases you. Even in the Bible, it says, be an entrepreneur. Make something that other people need and that they value and sell it. But instead, we're looking out to these stupid little pyramids that everyone, can't you see there's an agenda to keep people sick?
Absolutely.
So even the best people in the world that could be very high up in the decision-making channels of a Huel milkshake making it onto the shelf, I probably believe 70, maybe 80, maybe even 85% of those people are really, really good people who really believe that they are putting a lovely drink on the shelf.
You do?
I do. I think it's the top that are like, we got to sell petroleum, we got to sell fluoride, we got to sell seed oils, we got to sell these things. We got to keep people, we got to tell them to sit down and shut up for the first 18 years of their life and listen. They must not question. They must become employed. They must keep their heads down. They must cheat on their wives, live for Friday, get drunk until they die.
Yeah. No, it's actually...
That's probably an elaborate answer, but...
That's my answer. It's absolutely the truth. And nowadays, right, I find myself, you can never know for sure, but I buy products that I can imagine the owner of the company would use themselves, right? So, like, for example, if you're going to have a Domino's pizza, is the CEO of Domino's
having that once a week? Even once a week?
No, it's definitely not. No way, Jose. No. Are you drinking your own bone broth?
Yeah.
I bet you
said
are.
I had it for breakfast.
Yeah, right. So it starts to crystallize, and you trust your experience over what you believe, even because experience is more honest than your own belief. Your belief can take you sideways. I have to ask, while we're on the food pyramid, what do you think about honey?
Oh, I love honey.
Okay, great. That was the answer I wanted.
I love honey. We are launching at the end of June. Is it June? Yeah, it's June. At the end of this month, we're launching a raw honey at Ossa. And we've gone and found the next door farm to where we render our tallow, which we do by hand. We don't deodorize, we don't bleach. It's actually quite a painstaking process without chemicals, where they just wash it white, they take the smell out, and they, beef dripping and stuff on supermarket shelves is bleached.
Okay.
That's why it doesn't smell as strong, and it's much more like palatable. We don't do any of that. But next door, Mr. Sir, who I'm having coffee with on Monday, has a massive orchard of wildflowers and tons of bees. And we went and had a conversation with him. I'm like, come meet me for coffee. What are you doing with all your honey? Because the more local that you eat honey, the better, as we know.
Yes.
So if you're eating honey from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, whatever, great if you live there, but not ideal if you're in England. Especially for people that have hay fever or that are overly allergic in the summer months, that the pollen count is high, and the NHS is suggesting you go and get steroid injections in your nose in order to stop the pollen. Actually, raw honey can be extremely beneficial for that. It's a wound. We're collaborating with Fierce Nature, so using the raw honey at Ossa to make a wound healing balm. It comes in a little salve like that, because raw honey, after I gave birth, many women, now it's going to be a bit graphic, but some women that if you have drugs when you give birth, you push without having any feeling and you can tear, or the doctor would cut you. But naturally, I gave birth naturally with no tearing, nothing. But I said to the woman, obviously the cervix goes to 10 centimeters, so the body works really, really hard, and you feel it when your body comes back to normal. You're like, whoa. And my midwife said to me, raw honey. You just cover yourself in raw honey, And anywhere that you have pain, it helps that wound, the closure. It's antibacterial. So raw honey topically and for eating is unbelievable. It's a natural source of energy. It's excellent in hot climates. If you don't sleep well at night, a teaspoon of raw honey before bed stabilizes the blood sugar.
So could that find its way into the Fierce Nature range then, if it can be used?
Yes, so this wound balm I talked about will launch at Fierce Nature, and it'll be a little tin like this, a salve that you can use on bug bites, mozzie bites, cuts,
Amazing.
bee stings for women after birth, all that kind of stuff.
When you say raw honey, how is that different to the kind of products we would typically find in Waitrose stores?
Yeah, I spent the last 2 years researching honey because we always want the best of the best. And you know, when we grew up, there used to be that bear-shaped bottle. Did you guys have it? Like a bear that had honey.
Quite American.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Squeezy,
yeah.
squeeze,
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, cool, maybe we do something like that. But very syrupy honey that pours and squeezes easily is often a blend. So the way supermarkets do it is they go to the cheapest places around the world, mostly China, and they buy blends of the offcuts of different honey. That is not ideally what you want with honey. So single origin is hugely important. And that same thing goes for olive oil, by the way. If you look on the back of your olive oil and it's like a blend of oils from Portugal, Spain, and no, you want single origin, just from Spain, just from Portugal. Same goes for honey, same goes for coffee.
Yeah.
So is the honey pasteurized effectively?
So pasteurized, supermarket, anything that's not raw is pasteurized, which means
Okay.
that they run that honey through a very high heat process. So any natural enzymes, any natural pollen, any natural, the enzymes of the honey is what's the most healing. They're killed naturally, like milk. Pasteurized milk is the dead version of milk compared to raw.
But if you go into I haven't been to a Whole Foods and had a look, but if you go into Waitrose, you can't find a honey on the shelf that refers to itself as raw honey. So they're all pasteurized.
Well, there would be some, but people don't understand enough the benefits, so I would imagine they just don't pull them out on the package.
It's not marketing.
Yeah, it's not marketing. Same as cheese. When I go to in Waitrose, you can get amazing raw cheeses.
Yeah.
If I was selling a raw cheese, I'd put raw slap bang right in the front.
Yeah.
But people don't understand, and it's been another thing. What raw cheese can I eat? Well, all Parmesan is always raw, so live on Parmesan if you want.
Love
But Waitrose has got an amazing selection of raw cheeses.
Yeah.
So pasteurization, Louis Pasteur founded that process of obliterating anything with heat in order for the safety of E. coli not to break out in milk, etc. But when in Ossa Organic, we did it for about 2 years. It was on the supermarket shelves at Planet Organic. It was a raw apple cider vinegar drink. It had raw honey, raw apple cider vinegar with a mother, water, fresh ginger and fresh lemon. And we came up against so much cost because every batch had to go off and be batch tested for E. coli because everyone was scared and nervous. And obviously E. coli never, ever comes up unless there's an E. coli breakout. Same with raw milk, why people are so nervous of drinking it. It's almost like a brainwashing around pasteurization. So what is the difference with raw honey? Never heat treated, never chemically treated, never washed, never cleaned, just collected straight from the hives. And it is literally like broth. It sits at the same level of liquid gold. Salt, broth, and honey. I mean...
Yeah.
And this is a product line that's coming out at the end of June.
At the end of June, you can get our raw honey, and it's from bees that are fed only on wildflowers in Bedford, so just north of England, really local, never heat treated, jarred in glass, and we're really proud and excited about that. And I want people to understand that you don't have to never ever eat sugar again, like fruits and pineapples and papaya and honey and all that kind of stuff alongside meat is really, really, really beneficial for the body. As long as you... I mean, it's probably beyond the scope of this podcast, but once you start eating fat and meat, like we were talking about, and you see the weight fall off of you, and you see the shape of your face change, and you see the whites of your eyes get whiter, you have more strength, and you're never actually that hungry and all that kind of stuff. 2 tablespoons of honey a day doesn't even touch sides. It's just an amazing addition to you. If you're eating the way you are now, and you go, I'm going to buy Catherine's honey, well, please don't eat too much, because... you know, it's a different body in which you're working. You know, that lean, optimal sense of self, which is what we would encourage for everyone, that you can get from eating whole, real foods and focusing on protein and fat is...
Yeah.
is
So
like
speaking
the
about the locality of the honey and then the globality of Ossa, how does that work? Which countries do you operate in? Which countries are you selling to?
We at the moment we're in the UK.
Yeah.
We've launched the Fierce Nature launched into the UAE and the surrounding GCC last Monday, and Ossa will follow shortly afterwards because of paperwork around foodstuffs. So that's very exciting. And then we have facility in Europe as well. So the honey is a very good question because it would be absolutely pointless in my opinion, and I don't think any other brand would go so far as to be like, oh well, just take our honey and ship it, you know. Whereas our tallow, our skincare, I'm super happy to move that around because you can't get there's no cattle in Dubai, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
So the honey, I would say it's always to work with local farms, and we do have big designs on bringing it to people all around the world. And yeah, we'll see. Watch the space with the honey. I buy a raw honey already. There's an amazing Yemen honey, which is just next door to Dubai, and Jordanian honey. The honeys in the UAE are unreal, because you can imagine the Bedouin people. They had to live off of that for energy in the heat,
Fantastic
moving through
dates
the desert.
as well, haven't
dates
they?
and
Are
honey.
unbelievable.
Yeah, and that sugar thing is you and in fact there's a slight bit of a problem there with sugar now, because they've taken it to the synthetic stuff.
Yeah.
But the Bedouin people back in the day, honey would save your life. So the local honeys are beautiful.
And what about future scale for Ossa? Leaving the honey to the side for the time being, will Ossa be all over the world? Is that the plan?
Yeah, it's a difficult. Again, it's not like a grenade bar, you know, where you stick it in a packet in any old factory and just ship it. So we are looking at. We've got an amazing warehouse and a warehouse manager on the ground in Dubai, and there's space. And there's opportunity that if we can get raw material there, we can produce there, which is really exciting. And so we're looking at that. And then we have a warehouse and a facility, a team on the ground in Europe, which is also really exciting. So we're just kind of growing out into those spaces. But we have got a lot going on, so we're taking it one step at a time.
Yeah.
And I spend half my time now in Dubai, if not even more. And so that is a focus for us. It's a lovely market with lovely people, huge health biohacking scene, and so it's nice to have feet on the ground there. And then from there we'll see where we go.
Great.
I think I know I speak for Korosh and I both say we could speak to you. I know you don't have time; you're very busy, but we could speak to you for days on end and pick your brains. But we're talking for a little while now, and I'm semi-conscious. Of course, our cameras might cut out. So I think actually this is a good opportunity to say thank you, Catherine, for talking with us today and sharing all of this knowledge. I hope the people who listen to it understand quite how useful it is. And we're looking forward to the end of June and seeing the honey products come out and all the other products. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for chatting. And I do think that, that education piece is so important. So anyone who's listening, even if there's that tiny bit of piqued interest, to do your own research, listen to your gut, listen to something that's been nagging you, reach out and just make one small change. And for all of us, that's how it started. You know, as you were saying, vegan, vegetarian, whatever it is that you're suffering with, you just make one small change, start from there. It doesn't have to be all or nothing to begin with, and you'll grow into the person you were meant to be. I truly believe that.
Is Kinetic Blueprint, I know I shouldn't ask any more questions, but is it for kind of designed for mums? But
no, not specifically. It's for anyone. I worked a year long last year with an amazing man. And so anyone and everyone, and there's so much to learn, and not at all, there's no kind of boundaries to entry.
Awesome. Well, we'll share it with our friends and family for sure.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Catherine.